Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 7:01. We welcome new member Frank Conti, voted in last year. And Phil is Jeff is officially a voting member this year, so we have 7 voting members. It's our first meeting of the year, but we're gonna start off a little different this year, and the chief's requests are not, they're pretty similar to the past year, so we're just gonna have him get out of the way, and he'll be all done, and he can go and go on vacation. If nobody's got any problem with that, we'll give it over to Chief Story and go over your request. I'm sorry, Chief. One more. Did everybody get to review the letter I sent out this morning from the police department?
Yeah, the letter from Joe Conway.
Yeah. And it had the
Dated
request.
January 6th.
Yeah.
I have, that's the request.
Yeah, it's gonna have the police requests on it. Okay, go ahead, Chief. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. All right, so good afternoon, everybody. When I originally submitted my request to Joe Conway on January 6th, the only thing I was looking for were 3 police cruisers, which I request every year. If we get 3 new cruisers every year, it keeps the fleet in great condition. We have a good fleet. We do a good job of taking care of it. But, you know, they do get some wear and tear. The streets are tough on the cars. The hours are tough on the cars. Miles aren't such a great indicator of the wear and tear on a vehicle. So we look to replace 3 cars every year. We did that last year, which was a great thing. Last year, I asked for $186,000 to cover the cost of the 3 vehicles. The prices have increased a little bit. The price of the equipment that goes in the cars has increased. So I increased my request by 3%. So this year I'm looking for $191,500 to purchase 3 police cars. After I made this request, we had a radio issue. So we have 2 radio systems in the station. We have a primary radio system, which covers the Wakefield frequency. And then we have an intercity system that allows us to communicate with other agencies like the state police, the cities and towns around us, NEM-like agencies. And we had a major failure in that system. So Cybercom, who does our radio work, they came in, they put a couple of Band-Aids on it, but the system is 20 years old now and it needs to be replaced. They really can't get parts to fix it anymore. So we got a quote on that, and the quote on that to replace that system was $69,550.64. So I submitted that to Joe a little late after the deadline for capital, but we weren't aware of that issue until that time. So those are my 2 requests this year. If anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
That's the Motorola estimate, right? Motorola Solutions.
So you'll see, I submitted 2 Motorola estimates. One was for cruisers, that smaller amount, and then the larger amount, the $69,550.64. That was for the intercity radio system.
Chief, this is outside of anything going on in the public safety building projects. Like this equipment would be reused.
Yes, we got 20 years out of the previous equipment. It was replaced back when the building was renovated back in 2003. It's just reached the end of its usable life now, so it is outside of that project.
Okay.
Chief, is there any way that some of this comes under the IT budget for the town?
So we needed to replace our main frequency back in 2018. And IT at that time had money to do that. So they gave us an upgrade on that system. They don't have money now to do the upgrade on the intercity radio channels.
Okay. When we have our talk with them later in this series of meetings, would it be possible to bring it up then too?
Sure.
I mean, we don't know what their budget is yet, what the budget is yet for them for the next year. So
If I'm wrong and they have the money to cover it, that's fine either way.
yeah. Well, you're probably not wrong, but one other question on the cruisers. This is generally about maintenance. First of all, how many cruisers do you have that are functional?
They're all functional.
Okay. And the number is?
Let me do a total count here. It's right around, I think it's 26 total, but that would include patrol cars, admin cars, detective vehicles. That includes all of them.
Okay, this may be a little bit difficult to answer on the spot, so you could, you can come back later, but of the type that you're trying to replace, how many of those are there on your fleet, in your fleet approximately?
When you say type,
Well, there are three that you're asking for, which I presume are, the typical cruisers you see on the road.
well, I think I can answer your question. I think I understand
Okay,
it. So the three vehicles that I would like to replace, the first one that I absolutely need to replace is a 2001 van. That's the prisoner van.
yeah,
I've come before Capitol before and asked for that on top of the three cruisers.
yeah,
I'm going to include that in the three I'm asking for this year. The van we have now has 110,000 miles on it. It's 21 years old. The frame is rusted.
yeah,
Most of the time that we need to use it, it won't start. And I know people will say, well, what do you need a prisoner van for in Wakefield? Well, we have to transport multiple prisoners sometimes to court, and we can't tie up the whole shift transporting one prisoner in each car. And the van really started to show its value during COVID, because you have to think about these patrol vehicles as being the patrol officer's office. They spend their entire 8-hour shift in this car. The last thing we want to do is put a potentially sick person in the car with the officer, where they transport the person to the station, bring them into booking, the prisoner gets booked, then they have to go back out, get in that car and spend the rest of their shift in there. So we really started to utilize the van a lot for every arrest since COVID started, pretty much, unless the van won't start, there's mechanical issues with it. So it's really shown its value during the pandemic. And it's just at the point now where it needs to be more mechanically sound and safer. The more modern prisoner compartments that they put in these vans are safer for the prisoners as well. They have better safety features like seat belts. The van we have now, it's an old compartment in the back. It doesn't have a lot of safety features, so we need to upgrade that.
okay.
And then,
Well, just a quick one on that. This has come up in previous years, this van. Do I understand that you share this as well with other towns, or you do not?
no,
To
that's
go to court?
no. So it's exclusively for us.
Oh, okay,
We transport our own prisoners to court. So the way the cruisers is set up now is they're capable, a regular patrol vehicle is capable of transporting only one prisoner. So if we have multiple prisoners that need to go to court, we have to transport them all in the van. We can't tie up 3 or 4 patrol cars, taking one prisoner each down to court.
sure. Okay. Okay, thank you.
And
And then
did I hear, sorry,
No, I just want to finish answering his question. So then the
Yeah.
other 2 vehicles, we would replace patrol cars, but what we do is we take, if the patrol cars are still in good shape, we take them off the front line and we repurpose them. So say we replace a frontline car, that car that's now being used in patrol will assign to an SRO. So we get more life out of it. It'll last longer. And then
So,
was we dispose of the vehicles that have the most miles, or maybe have been in the most accidents or aren't mechanically sound.
okay,
I have a question. Are you asking for a prisoner's van? Is it one of these three, or is it in top of the 3?
No, as one of those 3.
Okay, thank you.
Dave, did you have a question?
I was going to ask the same question, and I just, as part of this committee, I appreciate the van had been brought forward a number of years, and I like this solution as it would become part of the 3 that we normally as a committee rotate for the police, the office of the police. So thank you for coming up with that solution.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, did you lose any cruises this year? Any accidents to get any replacement?
So I believe we didn't have anything totaled. We had 2 that were in significant accidents. They were hit by drunk drivers. We had a couple deer versus cruiser contest where the deer won. Nothing, we didn't lose a car, let's put it that way. They were repairable.
Okay. That always helps to get one replaced that way.
Yeah. Yeah, we had one cruiser where the whole side was basically ripped off by a drunk driver, but it was fixed.
Well,
Okay, just so we're clear, then the letter asked for three cruisers, but technically, if we're gonna get technical, it's 2 cruisers and 1 van.
That's correct.
Okay. We're on the same page there, I believe.
okay,
Any more questions on the other equipment?
I just, not to beat a dead horse here, the van's gotta be more expensive than a cruiser. So even with just the 3, I know car prices are up like 20% generally in the marketplace, like, is that enough? Are you asking for enough for the van and 2 cruisers?
I think we have enough there. You got to figure it's a basic fleet type van, and the van doesn't need a laptop computer in it. It won't need the a real fancy lighting system in it like a patrol car would. There's some corners that can be cut because it's not going to be a patrol vehicle. It's strictly prisoner
Right.
transport.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
We do have some lights that we can repurpose too if we had to save money.
Is
Who
there a
said-
hard quote to that? I think unless I'm missing it, the only quote I saw was the radios.
For cruisers,
The cruises, yeah.
I did have a quote. I was able to get a quote from Dodge. So we have moved towards, for frontline cars, we've moved towards buying Dodge Durangos. We didn't have a lot of luck with Ford Explorers once they got away from the Crown Victoria. They start to fall apart. We were replacing catalytic converters, front ends, exhausts, and things you shouldn't be replacing with the short mileage they had. So we made a move to buy Dodges, and the Durangos seem to be a more solid vehicle. They're holding up a little better. So the quote we got on those was right in the 32,000 price range. To outfit these cars, the equipment that goes in them, everything's computerized now. The light bars, everything, they call them smart systems. Everything in the car talks to each other. So once you replace a car, you're limited in what you can recycle for lights and whatnot in these cars nowadays. And where we get about five, maybe 6 years out of a car when we replace it. So by the time we get rid of that car, everything in it is obsolete. So we have to buy all new equipment. So to do that, to buy all that new equipment and the installation, that's right around $23,000 per car. And then you got to figure the lettering. Radios are just like computers now. Once a cruiser reaches the end of its life, so does the radio that's inside of it. That needs to be replaced. And luckily, we were on a cycle where IT was replacing some of our laptops in the cars. So we don't always necessarily need to replace a laptop when we replace a car. IT has been real good to us about keeping those up to date.
Who is the vendor
For what?
for the Dodge Durango and,
We're buying those from Rainham Dodge because they're in the Plymouth County bid system.
okay. And Wakefield's part of that system?
We are. It costs us $200 a year to be on that bid. So it allows us to buy cars from a number of different dealers.
Okay. And who services them?
The DPW will service the cars as far as like oil changes, brake service, any of the basics. Anything that's under warranty, it goes back to the dealership.
Okay.
Chief, is it possible maybe to get a quote for the van and we can just adjust the number a little bit?
Sure, let
If
me,
we have to either way, I mean,
hold on one second. Let me see if I have a quote for a van from last year.
and even if you got back to us with it, I mean, it's nothing you have to present to us. You could give it to Joe and he could show us at a future date.
Okay.
I
Let me
think
just,
it'd be more, more practical to do it that way.
I'll do that. I'll see
Okay,
what I can get for a number.
okay.
You want me to send that to you? Or
No, send it
Joe?
to Joe. Send everything through Joe and he'll present it to us. That's not a big deal.
Okay.
Does that sound like a good idea to everybody to get it more
Yeah.
accurate?
Yes.
sounds good.
Yep, agreed.
All right, any more questions on the radios or anything, guys and girl?
Nothing here.
All right, Chief, always short and sweet. Thank you very much for joining us. And yeah, if you have any questions, we'll go through Joe and we should be good. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time.
Have a good night. Take care.
You too.
All right, we'll get to the chief in a minute. Tracy, is that you on the iPhone?
Yeah, it's me. Sorry.
All right, no
Took me.
problem. We get
I'm
everybody.
driving,
That's
so
good.
it took me a minute to be able to log in because I'm driving. So I'll be home in a bit, but
No, don't worry about it.
Glad
we
you
get
said that
everybody.
after
We have 7 members now. Last year, Frank Conti was elected to appointed to the group. And officially this year, Jeff is a voting member. So we have 7 voting members this year. So I think it's the biggest committee I've ever been on. It's been a while since we had this many. It's a popular committee, I hear. Julie, is that true? A popular committee to be on?
You know, who wouldn't want to be on capital planning?
Good answer. I don't know if we can give the chief his van. It's always fun hearing him ask for the van every year.
Yeah. Every year the paddy wagon.
I thought he would jab me on electric vehicles. I asked him once and he said, I'll let you know when we're ready. It won't be soon. I said, you're the boss.
I did think it was interesting because I went back and I looked at the letter and it says 3 cruises. And then, so when he said van, that was a good catch, Dan. How do you know that?
Hello?
Dan, how did you know he was going to ask for the van?
I don't think Dan can
He
hear.
can't hear me. That's all right. All right, so let's, the chief just talked, Frank, just, I know you asked before we really started the meeting, but typically in the first meeting, we don't have any of the department heads present to the meeting. We usually go over everything and review the initial requests and then have future meetings where all the department heads come and basically ask us why tell us why they need certain things, and using our best judgment and Joe's and the town administrator's best judgment, we give it our best shot to do what's best for the town fiscally and make sure that but they're doing the right thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, we're a little off track tonight by having the chief, but it's a nice, easy one to get out of the way. So before we go further, anybody wants to talk about the chief's requests. And then obviously I thought we should get a good number on the van, considering it's, depending upon what you get, it could be a lot more, it could be a lot less. I mean, they could probably get one for a lot less, but who knows what they're gonna order.
Well, he was right to point out that the prices of cars due to the supply chain issues are just gone through the roof. It's almost lucky he's not getting a used car because that would cost more in percentage terms. But I mean, the prisoner's van, I think, has to be, I mean, it seems like it's very essential here. If you recall, you said that he brought this up last year. And why wasn't it funded last year?
Well, it's actually, Frank, it's come up for successive years back as probably the last 4 or 5 years. And, it's always been a consideration. The explanation is always the same. It's effectively a rust bucket, and it presents some safety problems. This is a little bit more modest than he's asked for in the past. The earlier one, the chief, he slips my name now.
Rick Smith.
Rick Smith asked for, had a partition to separate male and female prisoners. So this is a little less elaborate, but nevertheless, it's the same one. It's probably not a frivolous request, especially as the machine gets older, but it does come up. It has come up in the past. I thought I understood that there was a chance that we would be sharing this with other cities and towns around, like Medford, Melrose, Stoneham, Reading, that sort of thing, but apparently not.
Yeah, I had brought that up last year or
Okay.
the year before.
Okay,
And I
I
think
mean-
they came back and said that there were, and I understand scheduling, but Frank, to give you kind of another perspective on it for the background is it's a low utilization vehicle, right?
Right.
And so I do think his approach of making the last subsequent years, it was 3 cruisers and a van, including it in on the regular rotation. I think that makes sense.
yeah,
Because then they get, and if we make that a precedent, then they have to work out their car rotation so that, you know, ideally in 10 years, when they need another van, it'll be one of the 3 that they would be replacing rather than an entirely additional ask.
He said that there was only 110,000 miles on it. Doesn't seem like a lot. If it was what, a span of what, 10 years or more?
I think it's 20 years old.
Excuse me?
Joe,
20.
isn't it a 2001?
Yeah, it's a 96
Yeah.
or something like that.
No, there's 2001.
Yeah.
He said it was purchased. So, I don't think, we're all in the impression that times are flush for state and local governments. And I would like to fund this now, because when times become lean, you know, I could see myself deferring on the vehicle like it was, like previous members have deferred on it when the request came up. So I think we should get it in while, you know, revenues are there.
yeah. Does anybody think that he's underestimated these costs, given what's happened to the market for?
I think he slightly has, unless the purchasing cooperative, where is it, in Hingham? Did he say Hingham?
Yeah,
He really gets a good deal. I don't know.
Well, it's through, I believe what he referenced was a state blanket contract where there are discounts that are involved in that. And honestly, I mean, this is just my personal opinion. I don't think it's our role to second guess his pricing if we think it's low. I think our role is kind of the opposite if we think there's padding in there. I mean, if his estimate was, I think I saw around 191, I have to assume that's either that's padded in some way. Just having been part of budgeting processes in the past, I wouldn't go back. If we're comfortable with that amount in relation to the rest of what we have to budget for this year, I think we should go with that.
that's
Joe,
fair.
how has he been in the past for hitting the number on the cruises? Is he
The
usually
van,
pretty close?
So last year he came in at like 186. I'm shooting from the hip, but if you look up at the end
No,
of
he
the
said
year,
183,000, I believe.
okay, so out of 183, I think the difference at the end of the year in the expenditures book that Steve puts out, he was within like $250.
Oh, sorry.
So it's usually pretty good. And Frank,
No.
10 years ago, the cruises were only $40,000 each. So they have been going up. And that was fully assembled as well. So it has gone up, but it's only going up 10 to 15,000 this year. So
Yeah, and I guess you have to account for the innovation in these vehicles and the all the upgrades that vehicles have today with sensors and so on and computerized parts. So
I can look up, I think I can get the price sheet. I can give you like the cabin chassis just for, like a Ford Econoline 150 van. They'll kind of give you a baseline to work off of.
yeah, the van, the two years ago, FY21, the ask for the van was 59,000. And cruises at that time were valued about the same at 59 too. So you know, I think why don't we just let them get the quote and then we can just
Go from there.
decide about it instead of us talking about it.
Yeah, I'm okay with
That's
that.
good. That's fine.
So just so the committee knows, I do have all the quotes from Dodge that he supplied. When I had sent out the email with some of the other information, though, the file size was too big, but I can condense that and send that out if anybody wants to read that.
Sure, I'll take a look at it.
Yep.
All right, any comments on the radio equipment?
I came in late on that. I apologize. So that's separate radio equipment. That's a separate ask from the cruisers. That's not integrated into the cruisers.
Separate ask.
Okay.
Intercity, it's an intercity radio for emergency communications.
And
He-
they've never
he-
asked for anything like that.
So there were two radio systems, the one that's specific to Wakefield and the intercity. Is this purchase related to the latter or both?
Intercity, he said, the
It's the
intercity
latter.
program.
Okay, okay.
I don't know, looking at this list, I don't have a basis for knowing whether this is whether these are fair prices or anything, but
It's true, like we have a sense as consumers of what a car costs. We don't have a sense of what,
Right.
industry specific radio equipment costs.
Yeah, it's not our job to judge, to rate their pricing. They give us our pricing, we see if it's fair, if they need what their requests are. I mean, we could spend weeks
yeah,
debating what it should cost, especially when we don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So
okay.
let's just go
This
off
is-
of what it gives us and trust that it's good. And then we ask Joe, what do you think?
Yeah.
I can tell you, because I'm looking at the quotes now, the chief's budgeting is very modest. I don't think, there's not a lot of fluff in there. It'll become more transparent as you see what I send out at the end of the meeting, though.
What was the business case for this? I understand kind of like, okay, it's great to have an emergency radio, but there are federal programs that mandate radios and radio frequencies, et cetera. Is that what he's talking about, or is this something different?
David, I think he referred to a major failure on the system last year. Does anyone, I think I heard him correctly. Did anyone else hear that when he was speaking about the system?
Yes, they've been trying to make repairs that haven't been successful is what I heard.
Right.
And it's intercity emergency communications between Wakefield and other cities. And it's a 20-year-old system.
I'll give you a good example just to put it into context. So that incident they had on the highway over the 4th of July. So he would lose, or his staff would lose, the ability to communicate with NEMLEC from the police station.
Right.
Yeah, and the state police.
Correct.
Okay, so it's part of a statewide system. It's not just, okay.
Yeah.
And so the current system isn't operable? I can't imagine actually that's the case. It must be failing, right?
So according to the chief, it is starting to fail, but the problem is it's no longer serviceable. So there must have been either updates or new additions, whatever model that they have that's currently in place. Eventually they'll run into an issue where they're not gonna be able to either get a part or to be able to service it.
Okay.
All right, anybody else have anything on the police requests?
Just eager to see the rest of the, requests.
Yeah, Frank, this isn't the end of that. We're gonna revisit, we'll revisit this stuff when we
Yeah.
see the rest of the requests. And you haven't even seen the full list yet. You've only seen last year's list.
Okay.
Joe, what do you want to do? Do you want to review last year's updates or last year's statuses?
We can start with that and then work into new business if you want. That's the way that the group wants to go.
Yeah, that's perfect. So
Are we referring to the March 17th, 2021 final spreadsheet?
Yes.
yes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be shared. Yeah, Joe, do you have it or you want me to share it?
Nope, I got it up.
Okay. Yep, thanks.
So can you see that spreadsheet?
Yeah,
So
Lo-
this-
yep. Larger font is never too bad. For those that are blind,
looks like I can blow it up. Let's see.
lower right usually. Yeah, that's okay. It's fine. Sorry.
Oh.
I'll squint. Oh, look at that. That's more like it. That looks like my
Ooh.
iPhone. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes the meeting longer.
All right, so I'll just kind of go through this quickly as the capital planning committee has asked the last couple of years. Just an update on some of the things that were approved and whether or not they were finished or what their status was. It's nice to see that the majority of this list is complete. There are some things, especially in the fleet section, the supply chain kind of went a little crazy. So we're literally just waiting on some deliveries. And then most of the other stuff that's building related is either backup related to that or just fitting the time in to get it done. So I'll probably buzz through this a little bit quickly, but if anybody has any questions and wants to talk about anything specifically, just stop. Feel free to interrupt and we can go over it. So like I said, the top line is just all of our prior year leases for some larger things that we've done in year past. So obviously those payments have been made. That is obviously complete. In the fleet section, the majority of the stuff that we're waiting for is some of the larger things on my end at Public Works. The bigger trucks take about a year to come in and get built in good times. With the way that everything is lately, we're speculative that we're going to see those this spring, and we're cautiously optimistic that that actually might come true. Excuse me. Same thing goes with that gang mower and that utility van for our building staff. Moving down into buildings, most of this is complete. We have the water bottle fillers. It's been a little bit interesting getting in and out of the schools with the way that the pandemic has changed things. We're really trying to be as least disruptive as we can be, but those are in and those are starting to get put in. An interesting one to know, we've talked about the library stairs for a few years. We actually have borings scheduled to be happening up in the plaza to finally figure out what's going on underneath there, causing the stairs to shift, and which will likely lead into a secondary project to either reface the stairs and support them, or potentially redo the brickwork that's out there where Plaza Jazz happens. Some other things just scheduled for this spring, some fencing in our nursery, and we have a garage there that needs some rotted wood, fascia boards, and things like that replaced. We've completed the Hartshorn roof. If you drive by it, it's bright. There's no patina yet to the cedar. It looks pretty cool. That'll obviously change as things go. Some of the other things we did, we're still finishing our ADA transition plan. Hopefully that'll be wrapping up with my staff here in engineering shortly. And then we'll use that to drive some of our work out on the public right of way to get people in and out of sidewalks to some of the destinations they're trying to get to, and all make it accessible. Interesting in FPC means Forestry Park Cemetery. Out of anything on the planet that I thought would have been back ordered and they would have told us would have been delayed, would have been the playground for the Woodville, but it actually came in around late October. So that is with the vendor. And we had a very small window to try to install that this fall, but with mass breaks and things like that. And if anybody's been back there, which I'm sure you all have, that playground's literally right on top of the building. So once that project starts, it's more or less going to make the back of that school relatively inaccessible. So the school decided to pause until the spring or early summer, when things get a little bit better, hopefully the world is in a better state, but that's here, and we're basically just waiting for the weather to cooperate and the timing to get that in the ground. The miscellaneous section, we have 2 requests from the fire department from last year. It says FD to verify. I did talk to Chief Sullivan today. He is all set with that. Those are complete. The other piece to that is this year, he's actually not requesting anything of the capital planning committee. So he wanted me to say thank you for this, for them last year. And some other things that I apologize, I only got the IT update this morning. That's why you didn't get the list for this year, but was the classroom projectors that everybody that was around last year knows we spent a lot of time talking about. So when Todd or the school department comes on, they'll be able to give us a little bit better update as to what exactly they got finished related to that. In the bottom two sections, are just the enterprises that function out of Public Works. We always budget for system improvements in both water and sewer. Those are things like, small pipe replacements, manhole replacements, hydrants, gates, little things that come up that we might need along the way as we're doing our day-to-day. So those are obviously ongoing. We ordered our sewage pump and we have an aeration system for our lake that is scheduled to be put in this spring. So I know that was kind of fast, but I don't know, it's pretty self-explanatory to me, but I can elaborate on any of this if anybody would like, or we can move on.
Yeah, can I make a, oh, sorry, go ahead.
You go, Dave.
Just for the group, I would like to suggest we be clear and message to the school system and IT that when they come to do their presentation or before, they have an up-to-date status for their two projects. If it was just the one that, that's relative to what we give out, small money, but the 153 is, you had indicated, Joe, we really talked through last year. So I think I as a committee member am very interested to get the status of that. And working in IT myself, I know that there are supply chain issues rampant, but they should at least have their order number and a status, some kind of status that they can convey to us as to, is it being processed? Has it yet to even be taken in by the vendor, et cetera?
I would imagine that most of the work is either done and nearing completion, but I know one of the things we'll talk about when we talk about future meetings in a little bit is whether or not the committee wants to bring IT in for the public schools, which always happens. So I'll make sure when I ask them for their availability to make sure that they come prepared with this. That way we can get the answers that the committee's looking for.
I have two questions. One has to do with, there was some capital spending outside of what we approved through one of the CARES Act, some of the funds we got during the pandemic.
Yep.
So there was like a generator, some HVAC work, and I think something else. So this leads to my second question, or that's just a point too. How do we track where's the master capital plan that attracts everything that's been done, right? Like we have these updates and then outlooks a few years on is there a master plan moving forward? Like, how do we know like what we've skipped because we didn't have the money and we don't forget about it. And then 5-6 years later, we're like, oh, it fell apart because we never, so who's tracking the larger picture of capital in the town?
So when this group is finished, based on all of the requests that get compiled from the different department heads, it gets put into a document that kind of gives a 5-year outlook, and then it gives a further 15. As far as tracking it, obviously we know from year to year what we approve and what we don't approve. Usually I could speak for myself. A lot of the things that come up this year are things that we didn't do last year.
Okay.
Related to the CARES Act, believe it or not, if there's a silver lining in anything of what happened, HVAC and airflow became a huge priority. So the Dalbear School, if you remember, Phil, they had a compressor on the roof that was failing.
Yeah.
Some other components that failed. They actually got a brand new system. The Woodville School was the other school. If you remember, they were asking for $100,000 for a compressor there. That project didn't end up being $100,000, but they did end up getting the compressor replaced, and it was CARES Act eligible. And then I think the last one you mentioned was the generator from Town Hall. Tom Walsh was actually able to secure that. Either CARES or a grant, I don't remember off the top of my head, but that was something that was also addressed with some of that funding that came out.
Okay, so we don't need to track that because we didn't approve any of those, obviously, as part of our capabilities. So that I know it doesn't go on this list, but those get on some sort of master list of have being completed.
Exactly. And you know, it's typically not, I hope that I never, I'm speaking for myself, I hope that I never see that availability come up again because of all the other things that were associated with it. But it was an interesting instance to be able to accomplish some of that fit in need, but also, you know, made improvements that directly related to the pandemic as well.
Yeah, and they couldn't get any of their commissioning done out of those funds that they ask for every year. I don't know if that's going to come up this year, but
I
that would've
don't
been-
believe so. It
Yeah.
is, there is something in there related to it.
yeah, okay.
So Joe, who's responsible for putting together that report you just described? Is that the FinCom? Is that who's tasked with putting that together?
So it's, I believe the charter says it's technically this group, but that is something that is always fallen onto whoever was in my position now. So
Okay.
Rick Stinson did that before, and then when I was appointed, I just kind of took that and continued on the process.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thanks. And I do Frank's PowerPoint
All
for
right,
him.
let's-
once in a while.
Yeah, well, I'll send you holiday cards next year.
Yeah. It's pretty fluid. And then, you know, just so you know, on my end, you know, we have a separate capital plan for our water infrastructure and things like that that are a little bit bigger than this process, but we also manage that as well.
It's a huge job to track, Joe, and I joke, you had so much on your plate, like, I don't know, I feel like the town needs to commit, like a bunch of volunteer committee members isn't the answer either, like to track the capital planning and to Outlook, like, is a huge amount of data that's constantly changing. Like, it just surprises me that it falls on the committee, but in default, DPW's been doing it because you've been nice, but you don't have to do it. So if you don't do it, does the town have no capital plan? Like, I feel like that's I feel like there's a missing link in there somewhere in regards to future planning for this town.
I don't know if there's a missing link. I think so kind of touching in the world that you're in, Phil, we changed the software that we use to do our building maintenance. So one of the things we're tapped into is, you know, for instance, if we have a carrier air conditioning unit on the top of a building, we have the serial numbers, the manufacturer's date, and we get our PM schedules shot at us based on hours and time directly from the manufacturers themselves. So related to those type of things, it kind of automates that a little bit. It's just,
Nice.
you know, one of the things that could get a little bit challenging, I guess, if we're being candid, is, you know, keeping track of, we asked for the scoreboard last year and we didn't get the scoreboard. And it kind of fell off for a little while because other priorities came in, but then the scoreboard showed back up. You know, it's those type of, I would say it's those type of, they're not small and they're not insignificant, but, you know, they're a little bit easier to defer than, you know, some of the major things that this group debates.
Yeah, and I know the school departments had like 3 different changes in the past 4 years, and so I think not having the not having the same person there, I think some years maybe stuff got missed there just because of sheer transition. So it'd be interesting to see their list this year. So
I think when you read the letter to Tim O'Brien, who's the new gentleman there, Tim came from our staff here at Public Works. A lot of the things that he touched upon are very similar to what Bob Shirley had the year before that didn't move forward. So if anything, they took a look at last year and figured out, you know, what still remained their priorities, and they've come back for it again. But I have that letter for you that I'll send out in a corresponding email so you can all read it ahead of time.
So
thanks.
I'm feeling a bit, I very much, I agree with Phil. But I think it's been something I think I've brought up a couple of the years before, and Joe, for you, and I apologize, I forgot who preceded you. I think it's very appropriate, the work that you all are doing, and it's good work. And there's no but there, except that there's no formal, it doesn't feel like there's a formal structure. And I think that's a decision that, we can keep going like this. It's very kind of formal, and it's almost like we move forward in a kind of a window of time of 1 year past and 1 year forward. And if we as a town want to take a deeper look at like our investment patterns, because this is capital, right? And it's meant for investment into the town investing in itself. It may make sense to look at, is there a way to formalize it? Is that something we can do today, tomorrow, next month? No. If those are conversations that we want to have going forward, I think there's definitely room for that. But I just kind of wanted to call out and add on with Phil, the work that we're doing is great. And also the other thing, honestly, for formalization, Joe, is it gets you the recognition as well for all the time you put into this.
I
So,
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as far as formal process goes, so, this group generally has, what we review is generally anything that costs more than $5,000, and our threshold tends to be in these meetings, from my experience, the $200,000 range. And then if this process can't adequately decide that, then it would move to a warrant article and go before town meeting. But at some point in time, I know Mr. Mail will be dropping in and joining us. It's certainly something that we could talk about with him and see, if there's anything that we want to brainstorm to do differently. It'll probably be a broader conversation, but it's certainly no harm in asking the questions, for sure.
yeah, I would just suggest if it's something we as a group want to bring up, we should meet beforehand and just chat before we talk to Steve on that. If it's not something the group wants to take up, I understand that too. I don't think, our burning issue before us, our priorities are the asks for 2023. So if other folks are interested, we can continue the conversation in future meetings.
Maybe we should raise it here too, now that we have Julie with us, because this is a broader issue than just the capital items that we deal with. It may require something that goes as far as the charter committee. I don't know what that. We're talking about something that's quite far-reaching, really, as far as the constituency for it.
Yeah, I'm happy to be part of the discussions, help carry the message. If we need to formalize it through bylaws or charter, we can talk about it. I mean, I definitely agree. I know I've asked for kind of the ongoing list of what's on capital, and I know everybody does a good job, but what concerns me is maybe somebody comes and advocates 1 year and then they don't come back and they think it's on the list, but it may get dropped off the list. And so that just causes frustrations as well.
There is sort of a foolproof process that's underlying this, and that is that the department heads that get denied 1 year will come back the next year with their needs, and those needs might include something that we haven't brought along. So I guess what's the word? The grassroots, keep us looking at the things that have to be looked at. It's just that what Phil has raised is really sort of a what's the systematic picture here? How are we sure that everything is, we're not losing things through the slats? And I'm just thinking that we've depended on the department heads to help us prevent that.
I feel
I
like
leave
we've
you
done a
all
good job.
speechless.
I was going to say, I feel like we've done a good job, is because most of us have kept our previous year's files and we've gone through and said, hey, wait a minute, they asked for that last time and we said no, and this is why, keeping our notes and stuff. And then we did get from, I still have it, this 15-year plan. I don't know if many people still have this, but we had the 15-year plan that was given to us before Joe came on board.
Oh, yeah.
That is very detailed, and we can always refer back to that as well.
My only concern, I have that, that's where I actually found that, I was digging up notes, Trace, but I was like, who's updating that? So that plan, I think Rick
Right.
Stinson gave us on his way out. Joe, you've been in your position for what, 38 years at this point? Like how long? Like, what is it, 4 years or 5
Before
years?
you were-
It feels
since
like
before you were born.
Some days it feels like it, some days it doesn't. No, I would update that in tow. So I would have, updated revision from last year, and I believe I was the one that, I didn't pilot the ship, but I was, maybe the navigator. I have both of those documents if you want them. They ask for them every year, when it comes up to bonding and things like that. So.
Yeah,
Right.
you have them electronically?
Yes, they should send electronically. They shouldn't be too big.
It'd be
Like,
great
it
to
gets-
send that out for anyone that's, I don't know, like
I
a
can't
little
believe
light
it wouldn't be
reading.
that big though. I can't believe it wouldn't be a huge file compared to what I'm looking at now.
Yeah, the
It's
thing's
probably-
like,
It's
It's
pretty much
thick.
the exact same thing. It should come over in Excel, so it shouldn't be. an
Yeah,
issue.
no, it's obviously Excel, but it seems like it would be a pretty big file.
yeah, okay.
So as long as I've been on the committee, which seems to be getting longer and longer now, yeah, Rick used to put those out. And we always, every year we got the big book, but my take from that book was it changed year to year with what the priority requests were, and it's supposed to be a good 15-year outlook of like all these vehicles we're buying now, which Joe is compiling, I'm sure, and in 2029, we're gonna have to replace this and then this, unless obviously it gets rotted or if something else happens to the vehicle. But I don't remember it being consistent. If there was a priority, it always jumped to the front and we have to deal with it immediately. I'm not saying that it's not a useful tool. I'm just saying that there's a lot of work put into it, and sometimes we're dealing with our committee is dealing with the more priority items that need to be replaced
Mhm.
sooner than later. But yes, there should be a backdoor, in the background, there should be that document. It's an ever evolving document.
The best laid plans always change.
Yes. And to have it on paper always seemed kind of redundant to me. I mean, obviously if you have a link online now that's always a working copy, then someone could go and review it. If you're reviewing what they have now, I'm sure that's well outdated just because it is.
Yeah.
If that's from a year ago, things have changed, but I'm not saying it shouldn't be done. I'm just saying,
Yeah, it's 2 years old.
yeah. And I'm sure Joe has an updated copy. I mean, like you said, it's a working copy in Excel. It's just,
I think it's nice to have something to refer to. So when the school committee says, like a couple years ago, we need a new bus. Yeah, that worked out, so they went and bought a bus by themselves, you know what I mean? Without telling anybody, so I think that things like that, I think are falling through the cracks, and having a running list and knowing how old they are and how old they last. And I don't know. I know it is a lot of admin work.
Can I make a suggestion? If maybe, if the committee comes up with, if we could put together a list of, ideas and questions we have related to the topic. I have no problem. I can approach Steve and get some input from him. I know Julie and I could probably meet with them and go over it, and then come back to the committee and kind of talk about that. We can at least get the process rolling. Once we have some thoughts on paper, some things that we'd like to discuss, or this group would like to discuss, I should say.
Good idea.
can they just email everyone, all of us just email you directly, Joe? Because we can't do everything. We can't email a committee,
yeah,
obviously.
That's fine. You could send anything you want directly to me, and I'll compile it before I do anything with it. I'll send it back to everyone, so that everybody knows, what we're presenting and what we're asking. And then we'll start the conversation from there. But if we could brainstorm some ideas and thoughts on paper, or, some of the little things we come up with that, we're looking for the answer to, that'd be a good start. At least we'll have some sort of direction.
I think that sounds great. That's a good idea.
All right, any more questions on 22's capital plan?
Yes, I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Underneath miscellaneous, there's a GIS data application development. What is that for?
So that is something that my group in Public Works is working with to build the GIS infrastructure that we have. So essentially, what we're trying to do is take a lot of years worth of paper record and record drawings and plans and get that to an online digital platform that we can use consistently. We've done 2 phases of that work, one of which was cut in half because of the pandemic and the capital article being reduced. But one of the things we're able to do with that is we had to update all of the assessors parcel data. And right now we're going through all of our water and sewer infrastructure to get the most accurate plans from our paper record drawings to scale and bring that in up to something digital. So unfortunately for us, we have a GIS division of 1 person, and just what I'll use, just water services into homes is over 8,000 of them. So it's a pretty monumental task for that 1 person to try to update all those records. So unfortunately, we needed some help to be able to develop that.
And you said this is it's not completed yet. Will there another request come in this year?
This year will be the 3rd request out of 3 that
Okay.
we had originally presented, yes. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Joe, do you have the 2023 plan to share with us? You want to review that, or?
Yes, we can run through it really quick. So first off, let me offer an apology that this didn't go out with the email with the chiefs. I was waiting to hear back from 2 departments. I got the last little bit of it today. So when we close this meeting, you will all get this list, and this is what we'll start to work from. I'll blow this up for you. Oh, no.
What's the total?
Right now,
Yeah.
3.7.
Oh, really? We've had years where that was 8 million.
8 million, yes. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Something's missing.
like
Department
I
had
said,
committed.
the
$4 million.
The fire department doesn't have any requests this year. I do have some things from IT to add into this, but the number's not monumental. So the initial round request that we're whittling back from is going to be in the 3.738 range. So I'm just going to start from the top and work my way down. Like the last spreadsheet that we looked at. So line 11 here is just committed leases that we have. This is kind of the debt schedule of payments that we have for this year. Our fleet section compared to normal years is small in numbers. It is relatively expensive. Just to highlight some of the things on here. So the 1990 John Deere loader and the next truck under it were 2 pieces that my group asked for last year that we deferred. So those are back this year. You have obviously the Chiefs cruisers. The school department is looking for another sidewalk machine. I believe this one they're going to ask for the high school to help them clear some of the snow. We have 1 pickup truck from Public Works that we're looking to get replaced. And then my group is also asking for a de-icing skid. I think if some of the group that's a little bit more seasoned, you remember a few years ago, we asked for a brine making system to actually use salt and water to make de-icing liquids. Believe it or not, a credit to my staff, they were actually able to make one in-house. So we have one that's operational. The only problem that we have is when we go out and try to apply it, we only have 300-gallon tanks on the side of our vehicles. So that's something that we'd be looking for. The biggest section this year, generally every year, is your building section. I apologize, I'm waiting for one more number related to siding, Town Hall, and 5 Common Street, which is right next door. TH in the left-hand column stands for Town Hall. These are some of the things that our buildings group has identified that they would like to see addressed this year. Smoke detectors, some window sills, and some masonry, just to highlight a few. The public safety building, obviously we know that the police side of the building is going to see a major renovation, but on the fire side, we still have some rugs that are worn out that need to get replaced. My group's identified some windows that should be replaced, and they've also identified some VAVs in the ductwork that they'd like to see. Like I mentioned, the siding at Town Hall, I still need to do that, so I apologize. Some other things, we actually have changed the occupancy of that building a little bit. So the Board of Health is now functioning over there. With that, we kind of remodeled to make the spaces fit for them and make it functional. So we've identified some plumbing, some of the copper in the walls that we'd like to get updated so we can prevent an issue down the road. Excuse me. One of the roofs needs some attention, and so on and so forth. 11 Lafayette Street. I'm actually going to pull this parking space construction piece, so we can ignore this for now. I have to go to the ZBA to get that done, but that's something I think my group is just going to be able to do in general. But we do need a new front railing for that, and then our buildings group is a shed there to store some of their tools. 9 Albion Street this year. 9 Albion Street needs a little bit of love. It needs some attention to the rubber roof. We're constantly chasing the fire alarm for false alarms there. It's probably time for that to get replaced. The ACE committee has asked to see if there's any way a sump pump and waterproofing can get done in the basement so they can turn that space into something a little bit more usable. Right now, it's basically unfinished. The only thing that sits down there is some utility and an old office that I think the light department used in the early 90s, late 80s. The Yule School. So my group has identified the roof is starting to get old. It's something that we have to think about. The boiler replacement and abatement was something that also came up last year. If the group remembers, this was also pulled though, because if you remember, the tenant pays the oil bill at this school. This is the only building managed by the town of Wakefield that uses oil. And right now, we're not paying for it. It's the tenant, which I believe is still seen collaborative. This is a broader conversation I'll have to have with Steve, though, because depending on what the long-term plan is for the building may dictate whether or not these come off of this list. So there'll be some updates related to that. The high school, obviously, we can't ignore quality of the experience for the students and safety. Between my group and the school department, we noticed some ceiling tiles that need to be replaced there. Outside of that, there are no other high school building requests at this time. The Woodville School, we have a water heater. And the Greenwood School in the alley, if you're at the back of the building to the left-hand side, we're looking to gutter that corner to pitch some of the water away from the window wells. It's starting to damage the grates down below. The Walton School, the DPW group is looking for a roof ladder be attached. I guess transitioning from one section of roof to the other section of roof, they're carrying a step ladder with them because that's not there. The senior center, rugs and flooring, which is typical. Requests for high occupancy, high traffic. Probably one of the bigger requests that our group has identified is the Civic Center. This roof, as sad as it is for me to say this, is probably 15, 16 years old. But we're having a problem with the skylights up top and the way that they're flashed. There's a leak up there. And to take the skylights out and reflash them and stop the leaks is about $10,000 different than replacing the whole roof and reflashing the whole roof. Obviously, we have a brand new gym floor. It's something that's rented out every day, and it's really become a nice place for everybody to gather and have recreational activities. So that's an item that our group and Dan from Rec would like to see go this year. Other things there, the mezzanines are something that we have to update, do a little work to, just to make sure that they're structurally sound. The DPW building, we've identified a few things that we need there, basically garage door and heaters, and an automatic transfer switch. I will say I'm working through, I had to take we have some sander mounts that some of the apparatus we use for snow and ice control that were in that building. They were actually built into the roof trusses that we had to take down and rebuild. I'm just waiting to finalize what the price of the steel is to finish that. And then if there's any left over, we're going to address some of these. So I would expect that as we move forward, that you'll see some of these garage items for DPW come out of this. Just let's see, roof at the nursery, door handles for the Galvin, new doors for the team room up at Landrigan. Here, Phil is the district-wide commissioning for $25,000. The badge readers at the Dolbear were also something that were asked for the last few years that were pulled for one reason or another. Big one, new one from the schools this year is split AC systems for the classrooms at the Greenwood School. The Greenwood School doesn't have any ductwork. I know, Phil, you're intimately familiar with that. So they're looking to supplement some of the heating and cooling with mini splits. They also noted the rooftop AC unit at Woodville, and they'd like to refinish the gym floor there. Rounding out the building section, if you remember the library, their only request last year was new carpet for the red room and the gold room, I believe. They're back with that request for this year. They've talked about the plaza masonry and parapet repair. So those borings I mentioned earlier are going to be something that'll dictate the scope to this a little bit more. And then they've identified their front rubber roof as something that needs attention. So I know that was a lot, but is there anything in the buildings things we want to stop and talk about, or you want to just keep going?
I may
Can
be,
we do a once over, or
Yeah, totally.
I
Under
don't care, we'll
road,
do whatever. I just would rather see all of it first, but I'll.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
and I think, the other thing too is we'll obviously expand on that as everybody comes in. I'll have a lot more detail when it's my time to, take over the meeting completely for my group. But in the road section, we have talked about, we have plans drawn to do a cremation garden. Basically what this would be is outside of the tomb that's there now, or the office, this would be something strictly for cremations. So this will save us a lot of space, and it should defer another expansion project coming down the road. There could be a conversation about this depending on how this shakes out here. We might entertain asking for this in a warrant article this year, just to see that come through. So we've been we've been debating this for about 2 years, and it was a pretty big ask, but we feel like the further on we go, we don't want to lose sight of that. In the fields, Moulton Field was identified by Dennis Fazio as something with the infield needs to be basically redone, reclayed, and regraded. That's something he's going to start probably with this field, and you'll see every year for the next few years to try to address some of those fields to make sure that they're in the best condition that they can be. So team benches for the Sullivan. Now we get into playgrounds. There's a lot here. The Walton Doyle, Dolbear, and Dolbear. These are all things that we saw last year. They're still on the capital list from the schools. Miscellaneous. So the scoreboard with the cage. This is something I believe is going to get accomplished now. So this might come out. This is something that the schools asked for last year that unfortunately didn't go through. Then I have the police department's mutual aid radio, the GIS that we had talked about earlier. And my group is looking for an aggregate screener for Nahat Street. So this last section is just the two enterprises that Public Works over.
Joe, you're out.
I think he's out.
So we have some prior year debt payment.
He spent too much money. We shut him down.
Hey, we shut your mic. We shut your mic off. Yeah.
Are you at 2 million? Can you hear me now? I just got the unstable internet pop up.
We can.
Yeah,
Okay. So where did you make it through any of the miscellaneous section? where I was
Yeah.
going?
yes, yes.
All the way through SOAR.
Yeah, just start with sewer.
Yeah, so sewer, some prior year payment leases that we have, we're looking to replace our Bobcat. We need a new heating system for Farm Street pumping station. And like we do every year, system improvements. One thing that this is chopped off, we have a force main on Spalding Street that we're gonna be looking to replace this year, just so that's brand new, much in advance before any of the envision work starts to break ground. On the water end, same thing, just some prior year leases. We have a pumping station pump that we have to replace for 83,000. We need some new tanks and pumps in our water treatment plant that we'd like to do this year. System improvements is a little bit smaller on the water end, mostly for hydrants and gates. And then we'd like $500,000 to do water mains. Important to note that the water and sewer division ones, for anybody that wasn't here with us last year, these two requests would come out of retained earnings for the enterprises, so they would not affect the tax levy. So when Mr. Mayo tells us that the goal is to get to 2 million, that's 2 million for tax. And then water and sewer are kind of their own thing. So think of it as three different funding sources there. So with the exception of the IT things that I have to add in, that is the list that we'll be paring down to get to our goal of $2 million.
What are we, what's the $2 million?
Oh, my
threshold?
apologies. So typically, Mr. Mayo in the town come up with a target goal. So for years, I wasn't around for any appropriation less than that, but they'd like to fund $2 million worth of improvements.
Yeah, Frank, it's a number that we get told what our target is with not much background on how that number was come to, besides that's how much we can afford. Like, I feel we get 2 million in the 6 years I've been on this committee. We get 2 million every year, yet prices keep on going up. So I don't know why our budget isn't going up appropriately. And so, but I can never quite, we never quite get much info besides what our goal line is, which is usually around 2 million. And so, but I strongly feel the town should be increasing this on an annual basis to keep up with costs, but they don't. So.
I mean, inflation's gonna hit, is hitting big time, so you have a point there just on inflation alone.
Just getting less and less. The leases, can you talk about the leases for everyone again, Joe, just to explain the top, like because that number does come off our bottom line and how that changes. Do you have a schedule usually? Sometimes you show us on how that number is calculated.
Yep. So
Oh, here
let
we
me
go.
start.
Awesome.
Let me start with this first. Hang on. So I'll highlight this. So it's no secret that the larger the vehicle fire trucks, our big plow equipment with sanders and things like that, and this loader specifically, are expensive. So one of the ways that the capital planning committee can kind of do more with less is to finance these. So through a 5-year term, which basically separates the payments out. So instead of having to come up with a $270,000 payment all in one shot, you can spread that out over 5 years, to get in a little bit more from the list now. So historically, at least in my experience, We've done that a couple of times, and highlighted up here are all the current leases. And basically what these are, we've not done it with a fire truck because they generally run between $750 and $1 million and become their own warrant article. But it's getting very expensive for my group to replace frontline snow and ice vehicles. So we've chosen to lease them, and this is just a representation of the amortization schedule for those payments. So instead of, just to give you an example, this one I highlighted, which is truck number 22, instead of paying the $230,000 or whatever the price of the vehicle was at that time, it's been separated out into 5 payments of $64,000 instead. So it kind of spreads it out and makes it a little bit more, beneficial, I guess, in the front year to get a little bit more.
And
Yeah,
those
I
other
think-
leases, do we approve those other leases last year? The
Yes,
swap
they
and the
were.
crane?
The swap and the crane are brand new, so those were approved last year. These are the 2 that we're waiting for on delivery.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
these other two trucks are the only ones. We dropped a backhoe, another dump truck, and our street sweeper came off the debt schedule for this year.
Mhm, mhm.
I think one of the things, I remember doing this last year. I don't remember if we saw kind of a comparison to what a flat out payment would, purchase price would be, and then the lease cost with the added interest. I think that's particularly with the larger items, that's going to be important because as everyone has felt this year, our taxes have gone up.
Mhm.
And so we're just going to need to be mindful of, because those lease payments are great to get us in the door, but if I don't know what our, least interest will be, and that might be meaningful.
Absolutely. I think interest for the last 2 or 3 years has been good. But certainly as inflation drives the price of these things up more, it's certainly something. I think in a perfect world, we wouldn't lease anything. And I think it was Phil last year that brought up a good point. Why don't we transition to replace 3 of these at a time and do it through a warrant article? And we can have that conversation too. So depending on how this year shakes out, obviously we'll get all the information to show the difference between outright and what the total cost would be if it would be financed. And we can evaluate that.
And IT leases, school fleet leases, there's no more because we used to have numbers in all those line items on our sheets. Are they all paid off? No more leases?
Nothing. So we paid off the fire alarm bucket truck. I don't believe there's anything from IT. Todd can speak to that probably when he comes, but I don't think there's anything there. Todd, I know, is not generally a fan of leasing. Yeah, so I think most of it is just the three trucks that we have on there from my group, but that's about it.
Hey, Joe, how many loaders does the town have?
We have one that run operational and one broken. We have two.
Is the John Deere broken?
Yeah, we have a problem with the pins in the center of it. It's getting sloppy and it's getting hard to find parts for it.
Oh, yeah.
She's-
What year is your newer one? Is it like within 10 years? I feel like 10 years old?
It's a 2011.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So the hours are pretty good. The machine's good. If you remember, when we went through the operating budget, we increased the line item to be able to start sandblasting and painting. So we actually painted it to try to stay ahead of it, to try to get 30 years out of this one too.
Yeah. If I remember right, the 1990 was just supposed to be a yard machine back in 2011 when we got the new one, according to Rick.
It pretty much is. This one, for the most part, is the only one that goes in and out of the salt to try to preserve the life out of the, the newer one.
Yeah. Oh, and the sidewalk machine is the
Yes.
one from last year. Is that the one that was out in front of the Civic Center with the sweeper attachment?
That machine is actually this right here. This Ventrek. That's what that is.
Yeah, the one with the sweeper on it?
Yep. Yep.
We bought we bought that for the Galvin last year, correct? With last year's budget?
So if you remember, the school department has one, the buildings division at Public Works has one, and they're looking to add one. They're looking to add one this year.
Did the public work, did yours come through through our committee? Did we buy that one?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Are we going through questions?
If you have any, I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, I never have any questions, Joe. 9 Albion Street, didn't the Cultural Exchange just do a major rehab? And how did they get to do that rehab without touching this fire alarm system in there? So I just question what work has been, just took place there, and like how some of the stuff wasn't done, I guess, or different part of the building. I don't know.
no, so some of the rehab, I think what you're referring to is like lighting and paint and kind of transforming that main room. A lot of that was grant work, which was specifically allocated in the state budget for that. I'll be honest, the fire alarm issue is something that is relatively new within the last year. It seems like every time we get it addressed, it's coming back and coming back and coming back.
Right, you got to go trouble somewhere. They didn't put an elevator in during the renovations? They didn't do?
No, so the funding on those renovations is, $25,000-$50,000. I think the cost to do an elevator there is going to be something that's going to take a substantial amount to be able.
Oh, okay, yeah, I thought they did. Never mind. Okay, I was just wondering how they got away without fire alarm. I have to replace fire alarm systems the second I want to replace a smoke detector. So it just is strange that they did a lot of work and that didn't come up. But operating versus capital speech, just look at my previous years. Some of the stuff is operating expenses. It's just not capital. Like I can't see, some of the stuff getting through. We'll talk about it, I'm sure. I'll bring them up, but like some of the stuff really has to be considered whether it's a true capital expense or not. I can't see the whole list. So there was a couple things that stuck out. Like ceiling tiles is one of them, at the high school. Like that seems more of an operating expense. There's just certain things, door handles at the Galvin, 8-year-old door handles. That should be an operating expense. I don't think door handles are capital. So some of this stuff I just question even why they're on the list. The Civic Roof is a whole, we've been talking about this roof for 3 years of having problems. So it's just frustrating. And I look at these skylights every time I'm sitting in there for basketball, and they're really not offering much. I know they're offering some natural light, but so the only reason we need to re-roof is because of the skylights.
We believe that's where the leaks are coming from, yes.
Okay. Greenwood, do we know how many classrooms? When's the school department? Last year, the IT came really late. Like they threw in a 6-figure number at the very end of our process last year. Like I would love to get IT in as soon as possible, and I'd love to get the school department in as soon as possible to go through some of these items more than the library or other departments, because a lot of my questions really, I think, more stem towards those direct departments. So, but thanks for the review. Good list.
Yep, anytime. So I think one of the things as the group decides what the next meetings will be, once I get a kind of a layout of the next time we meet and then maybe the time after, I will immediately email Doug and his team to see if we could get them in here first. And then I talked to Todd Bowden this morning about coming in and giving a chat about some of the things he has. We could probably accomplish both of those in the same night. I guess my question related to that is just while we're on the subject, obviously myself, IT, public schools, would the committee like to see the library? I know last year they didn't come in and didn't end up getting the carpet. I didn't know if anybody wanted to see them to talk about some of their thoughts related to the plaza or the roof.
Yeah, I may be misremembering, but I thought the carpet was on there and then it got pulled because it was going to get funded some other way. They got a.
Yeah.
Remembering that
I
wrong?
think I think that's what happened then.
It's probably additional carpeting. Usually what happens is it's a chunk each time. I don't know. I don't know that
Well,
for a fact, but Joe. Is that possible that a little portion of it got funded and if this is a different section?
I'd have to go back. So I don't know what they would have available for gifts or their, I can't see their budget. I don't know, what they might have for expendable monies. But I could definitely get that answer and clarify that. I guess the question is, would we like to have Catherine McDonald come before the group just to have a Q&A? Or do we think that her requests are pretty self-explanatory?
Just to answer.
I
your
always
question.
think there should be a representative that comes from the requesting organization.
Okay.
Sorry, that's just my
No,
opinion.
I agree, and this is a little bit more this year than has been in the past. So we should ask her over.
Yeah, last year I have a note that library is grant funding, so the 60,000 for the red and gold was pulled from our list.
That's it, yeah.
So, yeah, I agree, and I agree that anyone asking on this list should be asked if they want to present to us.
I do too. If you remember last year, I think, the only request was for the carpet. Catherine didn't necessarily think she really needed to explain that. And the decision was made that, she didn't need to be there because it was relatively black and white. I think, this year, obviously being the second year, obviously we have the group has different questions. So I will
Yep.
certainly ask her to come join us.
And they're looking for bigger amounts here. Yeah, this is.
All right, do we, you want to keep going, Joe? Do you want to just discuss some dates, folks, for, that we all have available? It'd be great to have everybody at every meeting.
Yeah, let's go.
Yep, let's do
And plan
dates.
some dates.
With, we're shooting for a target date for our final vote for the 17th of March. But let's put that on the 16th of March because it's St. Patty's Day unless anyone cares either way.
What day does that fall on?
Wednesday. So let me start by asking what Monday, I know as a Dan, sometimes you have issues on Wednesdays. If anyone has an issue with, let's say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, do we knock a day out or is everybody, we're looking at probably 2 days a week for 3 weeks. The first
Okay,
2 days.
I no longer have a Wednesday problem.
Okay,
So,
Yeah, I have my permanent building on Thursdays, usually.
every Thursday?
For the next 1, 2, this week at least, I haven't seen any, so at least this Thursday I couldn't do, so.
Okay, I'm just looking, I'm thinking start the week after vacation like we usually do. So the week of the 21st, the 28th, so say March 1st, and then March 7th, and then the week of March 14th.
You don't want to meet again before that?
We can, I mean, the vacation week is the week before. We can try to work something out for that week. I went off of what we go every year. It's just that the vacation week is very late this year. So that's why usually we meet like the 26th or the 25th for the first meeting, but obviously vacation week is late, but
Right, it is
if
late.
you guys want to try to get something during vacation week, we can. I just want to make sure everyone knows it's vacation week.
How many meetings will we need to complete the task?
After this meeting, no more than 6. Knock
Okay.
on wood. And the
Okay,
6th meeting should be just a final vote on everything that we've accumulated over the previous 5 weeks.
so we don't vote on, we vote on a bottom line figure.
Correct.
Okay,
We sort of go through each line item, Frank, and debate whether or not we think we keep it on the list. And after we hear, it's sort of there's some that everyone readily agrees, and then there's usually a good handful that will spend some time debating, and that could go on a meeting, or we could come to a real quick decision, and not need a full amount of meetings too. So it really depends what the list comes in at.
so we will consider each item and have either consensus or a vote.
Not an official vote, but essentially, yes, we get a yay or a nay from everybody, how they
Okay.
feel on it.
Yeah.
So for the couple meetings, Frank, what we do is we'll bring in, say the next meeting, we bring in the school department and IT. We hear them and then we'll discuss afterwards, everything they talked about, and we kind of whittle it down there. Then we'll hear the next people, and then we hear, from the Civic Center, Recreation, and from the Parks Department, and then we whittle it down. And then at the end, we take everybody's together and say, well, maybe the school department needs that more than the rec department needs a baseball field or
Okay,
something.
yeah.
to that effect. So every meeting.
But also
with-
I was gonna say, also the departments tell us what's tier 1 and tier 2 as well, so we know what's the most important to them,
Okay.
to make our
Right,
decision
yeah.
a little easier.
Yeah, that's kind of a key thing.
All right, so- Oh, go ahead.
I have one request. Is it possible to, I believe I have the final decision list, the list that was made last year. Is it possible to see the original request list that came in the first meeting of last year?
I have that. I can send it to you.
Thank you. That just so I educate myself, so I can, be better prepared.
Oh,
Get
you're
a
very
sense.
well prepared, Frank. Don't shortchange yourself. You're doing fine.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll try to keep Thursdays out for now. But Tuesday, March 1st, is that a good first meeting for everybody? And if we want to adjust the time, please, if 7 o'clock, if we need to do 7:30 or if 6:30 works, we get done a little earlier. If we 7 o'clock's fine with me, if that's fine with everybody else.
Yeah.
7 works for
yeah.
me.
I'll
It
be
looks-
traveling that week, but you have enough for quorum, so.
Oh,
that's
on the
fine.
first week of March?
Yeah, the week of the 28th, I come home the 4th, so that whole week I'm out of country, so.
All right. How about Tuesday, March 1st? Does that work for everybody else?
Yeah, it looks good.
All right, we'll do 7 PM, Joe. I'll send these, I'll send all these times out to everyone, so don't worry about it. And after, if you all can, if we all agree.
So that's going to be our next meeting, March 1st.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
send a list out. Don't worry about it. We'll go over all these dates.
Okay,
How about Wednesday, March 2nd?
Okay,
Ash Wednesday,
Is it?
yeah, if that means anything.
well, I can meet my obligation and still come, I think.
All right.
And all these, Frank, all these are gonna be Zoom, yeah?
So what I was told is, we all agreed that we would all meet in person, just so everyone knows. What I was told is these meetings have to be recorded. And even though I think it was 3 years ago, we gave them money to buy recording equipment. Joe, is that correct? It's still not installed.
I believe we actually defunded that when they cut the warrant out.
Oh, is that what it was? All
Mhm.
so we didn't cut it ourselves, right?
right.
That became a much mightier red pen slashed that one.
Okay,
Yeah,
So I guess it's an actual recording because, I don't know, Julie, we all have to record all our meetings now?
yeah, I mean, it's public records.
Yeah, it's something honestly we haven't worked out all the way is
Yeah.
how to keep recording. So it's a good question. We need to revisit that. So yeah, for now it's easier on Zoom.
Okay. Maybe for the voting meeting, we can all get together.
okay.
They have recording equipment at the public kitchen, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is eventually to get all of the rooms such that you can meet and record pretty easily.
All right, so we have the first and the second. If we jump to the next week, do you want to stick with the Tuesday and the Wednesday option? How's that?
Mhm.
Okay,
Is that okay with everybody? Or, I mean,
Yeah.
feel free to say
so that's the
something.
8th.
The 8th and the 9th?
9th. Yep,
All right.
Frank, can I just
Yes.
ask a question? Phil, when did you say you were back in country?
I'm gone from the 25th to March 4th. I'll be 6 hours ahead, so it'll be like 1 in the morning where I'm at.
Do you, I'm just asking because I know, I'm kind of reading your mind. I think when you read the school department list, that's probably where your questions are gonna come. Do you want me to see if, or does the committee want to see them, try to schedule them for the 8th so that you're back and you're not playing the time delay?
No, I won't hold the whole conversation up because of my life. That's okay. I trust everyone in the committee to be able to ask them good questions. So I'm okay. No, I think it's important just in general for them to come to the committee as soon as possible. So if I can't be there, I may be wide awake with jet lag. I may be on the meeting on the first, who knows? So, but no, I don't require that. So don't make any accommodations for me, please. Thanks for asking though.
Yep, you're welcome. Just want to make sure you're not gonna miss anything, that's all.
Well, I am, but that's okay. It's my fault.
And Joe, we don't have any, on these Tuesdays, we don't have any conflicts with any meetings? For yourself, because we obviously love when you join us.
No, I don't think so. Any of my availability, if I'm not at the council on a Monday night, would probably be either PBC or environmental sustainability, but those are Thursdays, so
Okay,
I should be good.
all right, let's keep going with let's do 15th and the 16th. The 16th would be our target date for our final vote. Does anybody have a problem with those dates?
Tuesday, Wednesday.
And 7 o'clock, everyone, I mean,
7 PM, yep, is good.
sounds good.
On the Wednesday, I might be late. I got a commitment till 7, so I'm typically home around 7:30
On what, the 16th?
on Wednesdays.
Every Wednesday, we can start, does anyone have a problem? Oh, well,
Nope. All right. Take that back. It's Thursdays. I got the issue. So yeah,
Perfect.
Wednesday.
Okay, so we're okay.
All right, so Joe, you have those dates, the 1st, the 2nd, the 8th, the 9th, and the 15th. To schedule any department heads. You got the school, the IT. You're gonna have the library, ask the library.
Yep.
We're gonna have Dennis come in for the parks.
Yep, I'll have Dennis and Chris Pierce from buildings and my staff.
Okay.
I'll keep myself fluid just in case we have some holes with some of these other groups, but
And you want to have Dan talk about the Civic Center, or you want to let Chris talk about the Civic Center?
I'll give Dan the invite. Obviously, I think Dan's gonna echo some of the same things that my group
Okay.
will. But Dan's more than welcome to come. I'll certainly extend it to him.
Okay,
You'll obviously have to find a new host, Frank, or you'll have to just take it over for those next two
I'll have
meetings.
to-
So
I'll have
tell-
to learn how to- I'll have to
Just
suck
tell
up.
Sherry. Yeah, make sure you just tell
I'll-
Sherry so she doesn't send me. My only thing I'll say now, you guys can ask for the school department is, I was interested that the Galvin fields weren't on this list. It's gotta be about time for those fields to get the new rubber in them. Those things have to be maintained. So I just wonder when that's coming up. Again, part of the future outlook, because that's gonna be a huge number. And those fields get a ton of usage. So just, Joe, do you know when that's coming up?
So I'm actually trying to put that together now. We add rubber to those as an operational line item every year, just to make sure that anything that's tracked off of the kids' clothes.
Yeah, it's in my living room is where all the rubber, the town of Wakefield.
One of the things that I'll update you as soon as I have it, I don't have the pricing completely, but given the state of the high school project, the Beasley Field is obviously something that we're not gonna look to touch, but Landrigan definitely is, we mentioned it last year, it's something that's gonna need attention soon. And then I believe it is Mullen Field, the back field, or the field closest to North Ave, is the other one that we're going to request that both of those be recarpeted.
And that would be that would be the first since the building opened.
Correct. Yep.
Correct.
And
When
then,
did it, when did it open? I forgot.
14, I think,
Yeah.
right?
2014 it opened?
I think so. Is that right?
Yeah, that
That's-
sounds about right, yeah.
Is
Oh.
it?
It's the Walton Field, Joe, the one closest to North Ave, it's Walton.
that's it.
Just a detail here. As far as scheduling department heads, should we, just noting that Phil is going to be gone for 2 of these meetings, I think it's 2. Should we make sure that the 2 that he's going to miss are the ones that he has the least to add to, or
Again, I leave it up to the department heads' availability, Dan, just, if they're available, I'd rather they get in front of the committee and just present their cases sooner than later, because all those items add up to so much. So I'm good.
Sure.
If I have any questions, I may send them to one of you as my proxy to ask if I think of any. Or again, I'll be wide awake in the middle of the night and maybe I'll log on. Who knows what will happen? But
Okay,
yeah, if I think of anything, I'll just send it to probably one of the committee members. So in advance.
okay.
No fruity tropical drinks with umbrellas though, okay?
No, I'll be in a Nordic environment. I don't think there'll be
Oh.
much, maybe more
Alright.
schnapps
Whoa.
than
Whoa.
There you go.
As long as you keep it wherever you are, we're good.
yeah.
Okay, we got all our dates. I'll send an email out with everything, and obviously I'll put the meeting minutes together. Frank, what I do is I put the meeting minutes together, I send them out. The next meeting, we all vote on them just to make sure that there's no, that I got everything right.
Okay,
They're not too, I don't get into too much detail. So that's it. We have the meeting dates. If anybody has any issues in the meantime, remember, just email me. We can't email the whole committee because then it's against the rules.
All right. Do we need a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Yes, we do.
I move to
All
adjourn.
right.
I
Second.
approve. Second.
Second.
All right. Thanks, everybody.